I learned at 18 that I was conceived when my birth mother was abducted by a serial rapist. I didn't know the details. All I knew was that he was Caucasian and of large build. And I thought, that sounds like a police description. And my caseworker confirmed with me that she had been raped. And the police referred her to a rape counselor. And the rape counselor suggested an abortion. My birth mother's sister helped to schedule abortions. She made it clear to me when we met that if abortion had been legal, she would have aborted me. Even if she had to do it all over again, she said when I asked her. And that was, of course, devastating to hear. Now, my birth mother actually changed her mind about that 6 years later. She told me that after my niece had a baby, her first great-grandchild, out of a unplanned teenage pregnancy, my birth mother told me that she had changed her mind about abortion. When people make the rape exception, or when they say that they're pro-choice, especially in cases of rape, that's like saying to me that I think your mother should have been able to abort you, which is like saying if I had my way, you'd be dead right now. And some people would say, you know, it's nothing against you personally. Well, it affects me personally.
When I was 17 years old, I was a senior in high school. I attended a Halloween party at the University of Kentucky in Lexington. There was a man that had come back with us and had agreed to get a ride from wherever we were going as to not inconvenience us. So when we got back there, everyone kind of went to bed behind closed doors, and that night the same man drugged and he raped me. A few weeks later, I found out I was pregnant, and I wanted it over. It wasn't my fault, and I didn't deserve to, you know, have all this struggle and turmoil in my life because of someone else's choice. Society tells the world that you can't bring a rape baby into it, you know, that there's something wrong with these children and that they don't deserve to be alive. They don't deserve life. You know, society would have robbed me. Had I listened, you know, had I gone with the flow in a vulnerable situation, had I done what society told me to do, I would have been robbed of so much joy and so much healing. But, you know, that would have been nothing compared to what my son would have been robbed of. And that's his life, you know, his chance to love and laugh and be whoever he wants to be.
When I was 12 years old, I was walking down the street and I was adopted. I was brutally raped by 2 men and I became pregnant. And I used to feel like my life had no value and that it was my fault. And it doesn't matter how many times I used to shower, I was feeling so dirty and I wanted to kill myself. I was taken to the hospital and the doctor told me that I was pregnant from the rape and that I should have an abortion, that it was my right, that I did not have to live with the consequences of the rape, and that the baby will always remind me what I went through. And I asked the doctor, if I had the abortion, would I forget the rape? Would I forget all the pain and suffering? And he said no. So then I thought, why should I kill my baby? Why should I give my baby the death penalty when it wasn't my baby's fault? And just knowing that it was inside of me, I knew that it was only my baby. So I kept my baby, and when I had my baby girl, she gave me hope and she helped me to go on in my life. When she was a little girl, she used to tell me, Mommy, thank you for giving me life. Thank you for keeping me. And that's when I realized that she was the one who gave me my life back. Janae now is a 22-year-old woman. She's a beautiful woman, very caring, and she helped me to move on and she helped me to heal. And I never saw my rapist through my daughter because she showed me that it was a different person that had nothing to do with that night. I think abortion in cases of rape is like a double rape to yourself, because on the first rape you had no control over that. But if you had the abortion, you had the control to choose life over killing somebody. So my daughter has been helping me to become a better person. I cannot imagine being with my daughter. She's part of me, and we grew up together, and you know, with all the pain and suffering, if I had to go through that again, I will, just to love my daughter, because she saved me. And even that it was very hard and it wasn't easy, I would definitely go through that again.
At the age of 17, after having lived most of my life in an abusive situation with extended family, I conceived through incestuous rape. I was very confused, and I was very pressured by family members and by friends around me to abort my child. I had been raised in the church. I was a born-again Christian, and I understood that this was a life, and I understood at 17 years old that I wasn't going to take that life. I had an aunt and uncle that were very instrumental in helping me make decisions about keeping my child or adopting my child out, but very supportive in not aborting. I also had a minister that helped me to find a place to go and live. I went to a Salvation Army maternity home and lived there for the duration of my pregnancy, and the Salvation Army did see to my clothing, my food, my medical care. My child was conceived in rape. That doesn't make her less than human. My child has been a huge blessing in my life. She's been the light of my life, and she's been the reason that I've become the human being that I am. Had I had an abortion, I would have remained in the situation that I was in. And my pregnancy and my daughter gave me purpose. It gave me something to strive for, and it gave me hope for a better life. The idea that a woman who is raped has a right to kill a child is completely negative. It doesn't help the woman, and it doesn't help the baby. A woman is stronger than that. A woman does not need to be told she should kill a child in order to feel better about what happened. It's not going to make the rape go away. It just means that now I've been raped, and now I'm the mother of a dead baby also. It just heaps insult upon injury. Women are stronger than this. Women don't need to abort their children in order to get past a rape. Their children will help them get past a rape. Producing life and producing something very positive from a negative experience is very empowering for a woman to do.
When people use rape as an excuse for abortion to be legal, it makes my skin literally crawl, because I know that it's not an excuse, because I lived it firsthand. The abortion did not make my rape any better. In fact, it made it 100 times worse, because not only was I dealing with killing my child, it was constant nightmares about the rape over and over and over again. The two mashed together. I could never get over the rape fully because I was also having to deal with the abortion. And so I understand that people want to be gentle with rape victims. I know it's hard for people to really understand how you deal with a woman who has just been horribly violated in one of the worst ways, and that you think, well, if she has to carry a rapist baby, that's just going to make her have to relive the rape over and over again. So abortion's really the only answer so she can move on. But what they don't realize is you're just adding 1,000-pound weight on top of the rape. You're not making it better, you're making it worse. Since then, I've been able to meet other women who conceived in rape, who either chose to raise their child or chose to give their child up for adoption. And their stories are so much different than mine, because in choosing life for the baby that they conceived in rape, it was a big part of their healing from the rape. They were able to get the support they needed to deal with the rape, and then they were able to see something good, an innocent child. And they were, I know a young girl right now who's 17 who was raped when she was 14, and she chose life, and she has this beautiful 2-year-old boy, And I look at her and I think back to where I was, and it's amazing the difference, because she's not carrying any of that shame or guilt of killing her child. But there is hope. I have 3 sons now who have or would have had an older brother, and at some point I'm going to have to tell them about their brother. Because I can speak out now, because the Lord has healed me and I can talk about him, his death wasn't in vain. That I bring him honor when I talk about him, and I bring him honor when I fight for other children to not be aborted, and that when I help other women who've had abortions go through their healing process, it honors my child.
When you make the rape exception, that's like saying to me that I deserved the death penalty for the crimes of my father. According to the United States Supreme Court, he didn't even deserve the death penalty. There's no death penalty for rapists. Even for child molesters, they said that that's cruel and unusual punishment. And that's the thing, is they talk about how much they care about women. But they could care less about me, and I challenge them, now tell me, what good is my right to anything as a woman if I don't have my right to life? And they can never answer that question, because all other rights are irrelevant if you don't have your right to life.
I went to the hospital to get tested to make sure that I was clean, but I didn't tell anyone that I was raped. I didn't go to the police or anything. And I just wanted to go on living my life. And about 4 months later, I found out that I was pregnant. Later that day, the more I sat and I thought about it, I realized that it's not the child's fault. It wasn't my fault, and I didn't want to kill my baby. So I chose to keep my baby, and he's now 3 years old. To be completely honest, there's days that I don't even remember how he was created. I don't think about it. There's weeks, months that go by that I don't think about it, and it doesn't bother me. I look at my son like he's my son, and I love him, and I wouldn't change him for the world. I don't believe that abortion is right in any case, because I went through rape and I went through my pregnancy and I got through it. And I believe that if I would have had an abortion, I would be more scarred and more hurt now than I would have choosing life. My son is a blessing. My son is an awesome child. I couldn't ask for a better son. And it wasn't his fault how he was created, and it wasn't my fault how he was created. So why does the child have to be punished with death because of someone else's poor decision?
I was born 2.5 years before Roe v. Wade, the landmark decision that made abortion legal. And when I was, I was adopted into a loving and wonderful home, and raised always knowing that I was adopted. It was always just told to me from the time I was little, and so I have always appreciated the gift that my mother gave me of life, and the family that God blessed me with. And when I was about 18, I decided to search. I wanted to find my biological mother. Well, the farthest I got was my maternal grandmother, and she was very angry at being found. I knew that the circumstances surrounding my birth were secretive. My mother had moved up here from the South to have me. So just from the non-identifying information that I was given, I knew that it wasn't a happy thing for my grandmother to find out that I had contacted or found her. And so she told the social worker that I was the result of a date rape, and that she wished that I would have been aborted. So it was very hard to hear that. I was very almost disappointed that the social worker shared that with me, but I was very persistent, and I really wanted to know the facts surrounding my birth and my birth mother. So, I just came to terms with it, knowing that I'm a gift, and that my existence is a blessing, and that my mother did choose to give me life. Although I've never had closure meeting my mother or my maternal grandmother, I have been able to come to terms with learning about the circumstances surrounding my conception through prayer and my faith. And I do believe that it was no coincidence that God led me to my friend Ashley, who I have just been really blessed to know and to care for. And through helping her in her journey with Jaden, I really do believe that it has been a healing process for me to be able to have the relationship and have that connection with someone who, as my mother did, went through just a terrible situation, but that resulted in life. And so I'm very thankful that I've had that opportunity.
Well, I grew up with a single mom. I always was asking my mom where my father was and who he was. And every time I asked, she would get so angry with me and tell me that it was none of my business, or scream and yell at me, and I would run away and cry. Well, in 2007, God drastically got a hold of me. And after struggling with drugs, alcohol, abortion, divorce, the whole 9 yards, this lady ended up praying with me. And that day, my life changed. In 2009, I ended up moving back to the hometown that I had grown up in, that I never wanted to be a part of anymore. And it was about 5 months later that I felt the Lord leading me to go to the Social Security office. And at that point, they verified my father's information. And within about 48 hours, I met him. And he looked at me and he said, "I'm sorry, I can't help you." And I ended up calling my mom and telling her what had happened the last 2 days. And as she cried on the other end of the line, she said, "That man raped me. That man raped me." And it was at that point that I realized the love of a mother, but then also realizing that my life had been saved and I had taken 3 lives of my own. And the humility of knowing that every life is precious, that God had made my life. He knew every hair on my head. And now knowing that He has a plan and a purpose to tell the truth, to tell the general public, to tell women, to encourage them, you do not want to choose abortion. It is harmful, not only mentally, physically, emotionally. It affects you for the rest of your life. And you can't take it back. You can't. And now I just continue to be so thankful for my life and the love that my mom has for me, that she did keep me, no matter how I was conceived.
My birth mother was taken by her father 3 times for an illegal abortion. The first 2 times, she basically chickened out. And the 3rd time, she was going to go through with it, and something inside her just screamed no, and she was prepped on the table. She ended up kicking the abortionist and escaped from this back alley abortion clinic, because this was before Roe versus Wade, so this was all illegal. But I think her soul was just screaming, "I'm not doing this, this is a baby," and she knew it was a baby, and she wasn't going to make that decision. You know, my birth mother was obviously a young girl in crisis, was completely incapable of taking care of a child. Jim's mother, who was raped and carried him, and she was older, she was 36. So she concealed the pregnancy as long as she could and hid it, and was able to get to Catholic Charities and have him. So we're 2 kids who may have been conceived and born out of crisis, but we're certainly not any less loved, any less wanted. We both had amazing adoptive parents who so desperately wanted children, who couldn't have children of their own. Our parents actually have very similar stories, could not have their own kids. And we were the biggest blessings and the biggest answer to their prayers is to have a family when nature wouldn't provide one. And so for those of us who our society may call the unwanteds, I think every adoptive parent out there would negate that argument and argue against it and say, no, these children are loved and wanted and are every bit as valued, you know, regardless of conception, regardless of your humble beginnings. You know, you are who you are based on the character of who you are, not necessarily the moment of your creation.
As a rape-conceived person, I take this very personally, and I take the exceptions included in law very personally, because back in 1958, had someone been proposing laws with rape exceptions that would have targeted me directly. So we as rape-conceived individuals are here to speak for the people who are targeted today, and to be consistent with true pro-life philosophy, we're here to speak for the people who can't speak for themselves, for those preborn, those rape-conceived babies about to be born who need protection, as everyone else does, as the other 99% have. I'm so thankful to my mother, certainly thankful for her courage, but I'm thankful that I'm here to honor God with my life to the best of my ability, and through Wendy and the love that we share, to continue life with a great family, 3 wonderful sons, and what a blessing they are. And it shows that out of tragedy or out of difficult circumstances, life blossoms.
My birth mother at 17 years old was violently raped and as a result became pregnant with me. But my life was protected in 1972 by a law that said that my life had value. And despite the law being there for me, my birth mother succumbed to the pressure of carrying a child conceived out of rape and found herself at a back alley abortion clinic at the advice of her mother. At that clinic that day, while standing in front of the man that was going to take my life, my birth mother changed her mind. She left, never looked back. Her mother hid her from the outside world. She gave birth to me and never even looked at me. But she gave me the greatest gift that I have ever received. On top of giving me my life, she gave me an amazing family. And for that, I'll forever be grateful. My birth mother passed away March 6th of this year from a urinary tract infection that went septic at the age of 57. For 7 days, she was on a ventilator fighting for her life. And for 7 days, I was sitting beside her, praying to God that He would give me more time. She was with me when I took my first breath, and I was holding her hand when she took her last. And does it really matter what happened in between? She valued my life. She valued my life enough to give me my life, and I valued her life enough to be there when she passed. And her story, she's the hero here. She's the one who made all the sacrifices. I'm just the one who received her gift. And I'm so blessed that I'm able to tell it. But if abortion would have been legal in 1972, at the advice of her mother, I would not be sitting here today. I've known God my whole life. I've been a Christian. And once I realized the path that He was leading me down was to share this story, I felt a total calm and a total peace in my life. He put me here to change lives, not only as being a firefighter and a medic, but to save babies that deserve to be protected. She will forever be in my heart. And one of the things with her going to an abortion facility because of the peer pressure of carrying a child conceived out of rape, that's what we do to these girls today. We tell them that their child is not going to amount to anything, that a child conceived out of rape is a person that's going to have a black cloud over them their whole life. I don't have a black cloud over me. I love my life. I've been married for 15 years to the love of my life, my parents. I couldn't imagine life without them. And because of her gift, I'm blessed.
My mother was abused by her father for many years, and of the 6 pregnancies, I was the second child conceived and the only survivor. The 4 subsequent pregnancies were terminated through abortion and covered up his actions. That was the goal for that. It's unclear. I'm unsure why I was not terminated. I don't have an answer for that. All I know is that I'm very thankful that I was not. My family is thankful that I'm not. That my life was spared, and God has a purpose for me and for each child conceived, no matter the circumstance. I was placed for adoption when I was born and raised loving Christian home. They provided me with everything, including unconditional love and support. I truly feel that I'm here today, and He has allowed me to live out my life, and it is through His divine purpose that I am here.
In 1964, a young 15-year-old girl became pregnant, had a lot of difficult choices to make. Maybe more so than some girls, she was raped. But this young girl chose to give her child life and then to place that child with an adoptive family, and that child was me. My biological father is a rapist. I don't even know my ethnicity, but I am still a human being, and I still have value, and my life isn't worth less than yours just because of the way I was conceived. And I don't believe that I deserve the death penalty because of the crime of my biological father. And I've not had a chance to meet my birth mom. I hope to. If I don't meet her here on earth, I'm going to meet her in heaven. I've been praying for her since I was 4. And when we meet, I'm going to wrap my arms around her and I'm going to tell her I love her, because she loved me enough to give me my life, and then loved me enough to give me the next most special gift I was ever given, and that's my family. I'm the oldest of 8 kids, 7 of us adopted, every color of the rainbow in my family. We are the United Nations all by ourselves. And I know that my amazing family was a gift from a very scared 15-year-old girl, and I will forever be grateful to her for that. One of the things that I've learned for young women is that abortion in the initial stages of finding out you're pregnant, when you're scared to death and you don't know what you're going to do, seems like the easy way out. And the industry of abortion preys on them because it's like, look, we can just make this go away. But the reality is the abortion never makes it go away. And the girls and the women that I've worked with over the years who took the easy way out and went to the abortion clinic end up with years of regret and years of pain. And it doesn't fix the rape. Killing their child did not undo the rape. They're still a victim of rape, they're still a victim of assault, and now they're dealing with the victimization of their child. And unpacking that in the counseling offices is extremely difficult. The girls who chose to carry their children to term, whether they made a decision for placement or whether they made a decision to parent that child, go through a lot of months of difficulty, and there's a lot of counseling, and they need love, and they need support, and they need people to be there for them. But the long-term recovery is unbelievable. I have never met one girl who was raped, became pregnant, carried the child to term, and within months or years later looked at me and said, Pam, I wish I would have killed my child. I wish I would have had an abortion. Not once. But I can tell you countless, in fact, literally days ago, in tears, almost 53-year-old woman came up and told me that she had had an abortion as a result of rape, and at 53 years after that incident, is still carrying the pain from that abortion, still carries the pain and the scars. Not just the rape, the abortion is what hurt her. And it just blows my mind that anyone can believe that somehow abortion is going to fix the rape. It does not. It kills the child, it harms the mother. The only person in theory that you've helped with a decision to abort a child conceived in rape is the rapist. And I'm not sure that's who we're expecting to have compassion for. It makes absolutely no sense. You know, we've been fighting this pro-life battle for many, many years now, and the media is not our friend. The media has never been our friend, will never be our friend. We've known it for all of these years. And sometimes even when politicians come out and they say something that's correct, like God has a plan for children, even those children conceived in rape, which is completely true. God had a plan for my life. My conception wasn't, you know, what my biological father did was wrong. But God still had a plan for my life, and that's true. Well, the media is obviously going to take that and say, well, you said God planned rape, which he didn't say, and those things all happen. The problem is, if we enter in to compromise and we start to say, well, I really think abortion is killing a child, but this, but that, what you've done is you've compromised the most important truth, the only thing we have to stand on. If it is a human life, then it is wrong to kill it, regardless of the circumstances. And when you start playing the circumstance game, you're playing into their argument. Because now they're saying, well, what if the woman was abused? What if she fears for her life? What if her boyfriend might kill her? What if she can't support the child? What if the child's going to be abused? All of those arguments we've heard since the very beginning. The reality is this is a human being created by God, regardless of the circumstances in which that happened, and every single child deserves the right to life. And there are no exceptions. The minute you make the exception, you've negated the entire argument. Compromise hasn't worked. At the end of the day, the compromise hasn't worked. And as a community, we have to speak up and say, the reason that I believe abortion is wrong is because this is a living human being whose life you are taking, who is an innocent child in the process. And the minute you stray away from that, then you leave yourself open for every single exception that people can come up with, and they can come up with a lot of them.
And I've heard all kinds of things like that were demon spawn, the rapist baby, monster's child, horrible reminder of the rape. And that's not true. That's not what rape victims actually express. Instead, what they express is that that child is a blessing, that child helped them to overcome the rape, that they felt like they were no longer in it alone, where they had vowed never to tell a soul about their rape. Because of that child, they now had to tell people and had to get the counseling and have the healing that they never would have otherwise received if it had not been for that child. And some have expressed that they felt like they had a little angel to keep them company during their time of healing. And my birth mother says that I'm a blessing to her. I honor her and I bring her healing. And that's the other fallacy that people have. They think that that baby has got to be absolutely the worst thing that's ever happened to a rape victim, and that's not true. An abortion is. But people just assume that she would be better off with an abortion, and that could not be further from the truth.
I'm a family physician and pediatrician. I've been practicing medicine for about 12 years. I tell my patients do not get an amniocentesis. An amniocentesis was what the obstetrician orders. About mid-trimester, they'll put a needle in the uterus to draw some fluid and send it for testing and look for genetic abnormalities. Because the whole reason they do an amniocentesis, the whole reason, is so they can offer an option for an abortion if there's evidence of some kind of abnormality. Many times, it's a false positive. Turns out the baby's normal, and they're giving a mom an option to get an abortion, putting fear in her heart that's not there. There's no reason to do an amniocentesis. And when you meet one blind baby who's been blinded because the needle went into the baby's eye, it'll make you think whether this is even good health care at all. But unfortunately, there's been a wrongful life suit. We hear of wrongful death suits. But there's been a wrongful life suit where a baby was born and the pro-life doctor did not recommend an amniocentesis, and the baby was born mentally handicapped, and the parents sued the physician because they weren't offered an opportunity to abort, and they won that lawsuit. And so fear of litigation is driving the need to recommend an amniocentesis so that you can offer an abortion if there's any evidence of an abnormality, and it's become one of the most corrupt aspects of obstetrics right now.
I was told many times that my children, when they were in the womb, were not going to be perfect. 3 times I was told that they would have Down syndrome. Each time I was afraid. But each time it turned out that that child was perfectly normal. And so even though I feared that, I still received a huge blessing with each child. Then when I had Colleen, I was not warned. The doctor did not know she was Down syndrome, even with the ultrasounds that we took and the blood tests. But when she was born, we found that she was Down syndrome. Sure enough, Colleen has been a huge blessing to us.
Right after Colleen was born, and before much had happened, the midwife asked me, "Well, so what do you think?" I said, "She's still our child. She's still one of us. Nothing will be different about that." She laughed. She said, "Yeah, I know you. The kids, usually Down syndrome kids might be about 10 IQ points less than others, but that means hers will be about 130. We laughed. But we've seen that she is a major part of our family, and that she fits in and uses the intelligence that God gave her. It's not like she's, dumb or inferior in some way.
Well, this is Colleen, and she's our favorite little 7-year-old in the whole wide world. She's lots of fun, and she loves to sing, she loves to sign, she loves to watch signing time. It's amazing how talented she can be.
The doctor, we sat down and he said, "Your kid is going to die. Is there anything you want to ask?" And of course we had questions, so we tried to ask some questions. He told me that even if I wanted to, I was too far along to terminate, though that would be his recommendation. From the beginning, we pretty much got, expect him to die, expect him to die. He did live 8 months. It's been hard losing him, but he taught me a lot.
It's pretty amazing. Facebook, he's got thousands of fans who every day tell us how he changed their life. So, I don't know, it's just the whole ideal of him. His picture, incites hope. So, especially for me, and I know other people too, but, it's a hope that keeps us going.
It's worth it. You will learn an unconditional love. Having children, you already love them, but having a special needs children, you develop this incredible bond because you're constantly there, you're constantly taking care of them.
I believe that each life is ordained by God and originates with God, and that who are we to take that life? It wasn't up to us. We were given an opportunity to end his life. Really early on in the hospital, an intensivist asked us, did we want to go into a special room and say goodbye to Joseph? And I got to share with her, she's an atheist, and I got to share with her that Joseph's life began with God, and he was created by God and ordained by God and given to us, and that we didn't plan on ending his life there in the hospital. And if God chose to take Joseph, that it was his business and that he would do it in his own way. If I had to do it all over again, if I knew ahead of time of Joseph's condition and that the doctors, had pronounced the diagnosis, and we knew, what we know now, I would do it all over again, no doubt about it. It's been one of the richest experiences of my life, and like I said, God's taught us a tremendous amount that we never could have learned apart from Joseph.
My life started when my birth mother came out of a bar and she was raped. She had 2 daughters previously, and a third one didn't fit into her picture. For 9 months she drank antifreeze and drain cleaner to try to kill me, and without killing us both, I still survived. And when I was born with cancer in my right eye, and 2 years later I had to have it removed. And so when I was 3 days old, she dropped me off at her brother's house, and she said, "Here it is." And that was the end of it, and that's where my life started, because they adopted me, her brother and sister-in-law. And I proceeded to have over 150 surgeries on my face with the radiation and everything to stop the cancer, and plastic surgery. And it's been an up and down battle. Nothing that I couldn't handle with the grace of God, because he brought me through it all. Every surgery I would tell him, "My life is in your hands, Lord. Take me where you want me to be. Put me where you want me to be." And I always had a guardian angel sitting right next to me all the time, guarding me, taking me through every surgery, and I'd come out when the odds were simply to nothing, and I still would survive. And I had a brain tumor with 2 days to live, and God took me through that. So obviously He wants me here because I do love Him, and He loves me. And my birth mother, I have forgiven my birth mother. That was her decision. That's the decision she made. What was wrong or right is not for my calling. I just do believe in God, and He kept me here for a purpose, and it is to talk about God and talk about the faith and the miracles that He performs here on earth, not just with me, but with all the other miracles that He does. And I am a walking miracle, and that's what they call me. I have a son who is married, and he has a set of twins. And I'm so blessed to have a husband to begin with that would take somebody who was disabled. And then when we're married, then I have my son, and he has twin boys, and he has a daughter. And the abortion just didn't affect me. It affected, if I wasn't here, I wouldn't have a husband or a son or all these grandchildren that I have. Abortion affects everything.
Our second adopted child, Cassie, was born with special needs. And when I did research regarding her particular genetic disorder, it was called velocardiofacial syndrome, otherwise known as DeGeorge syndrome. All I kept finding online was how to detect it in utero so that you could have the opportunity to abort. And most of those babies were aborted. Just like with Down syndrome babies, 90% are aborted today. That's been the cure, is to just simply kill them. And I think it's just so awful and tragic that anyone would have looked at my daughter Cassie and said that she wasn't as good, that it wasn't worth going through that. I held her, her birth mother held her, and then she died in my husband's arms. And it was absolutely the most difficult thing we'd ever been through in our lives. But it was an honor to take care of her. And we have peace of mind that we valued her life and that we were not the cause of her death. It would have been far more difficult to overcome it all if we had caused her death. And that's what I see from friends who have miscarried late. I have friends who went to a funeral of a baby where the baby's umbilical cord was triple wrapped around the baby's neck. And just like when I went through a couple of miscarriages, I lost a couple of babies in utero, they all say the same thing. They would have given anything to have had even a moment to hold that baby alive. And it is the biggest ripoff to suggest that that's not worth it, that it's not worth going through that.
Around about 1985, 1986, I discovered I was pregnant and was excited about it to a degree. I had a baby in August of 1984, so that baby was still little, and I really wasn't planning on having another one that soon, but you can't plan all these things, so we were excited. We were walking along. It was a spring, April morning, and I said, if this baby's born this month, I'm just going to name her April. April Joy. It was a real shock to find out that I in fact had an anencephalic baby. When you deliver, and I delivered a stillborn at 7 months, there's no guilt. Your body's able to go through all the mechanisms that it has to, hormonally and physically and everything, to recover. When you go ahead and abort, that whole process is disrupted. And so you end up with a lot more prevalence of breast cancer, specifically for having had an abortion.
The vast majority of medical studies on this subject of the abortion-breast cancer link, I think 29 studies now, 27 of them with greater than 95% confidence interval level, which is the gold standard for our confidence that this is a good, valid study and to be applied to practice, have shown that there's a link between abortion and breast cancer. Not so with a natural miscarriage, because even though those breast cells are in a replicating state, you know, when there's a natural miscarriage, there's a gradual decrease in the hormones, and the breast cells are put back to a natural suspended state. But within there, there's an abrupt cessation of those hormones by way of a violent abortion. Many of those breast cells, it's been theorized, will remain in a hyperactive state, and that may be responsible for the explosion in breast cancer we've seen. Just epidemiologically, it makes perfect sense. Pathophysiology is there. It makes sense how that could happen, and that's what the evidence shows when you do look at large-scale studies done by the World Health Organization and other large groups, is that there is a solid link between abortion and breast cancer. And so it is not in the baby's best interest to get an abortion if the mom's sick, and neither is it in the mother's best interest. Congressman Ron Paul is an OBGYN who has delivered thousands of babies, and he said he's never seen a case in which abortion was necessary to save the life of the mother. Now, I've seen many physicians recommend abortion to save the life of the mother, but in essence, they're trying to protect themselves. When that woman goes to the oncologist, and the oncologist says, we can cure your chemotherapy, but you got to get the abortion first, because I will not give you chemotherapy if you're pregnant. And so this woman has to get an abortion in order to get treated for her chemotherapy. Why can't they simply just treat the woman? Because if the baby's born deformed, if the baby's born prematurely, if this wanted child is born stillborn, that can affect him by way of litigation. So when a physician recommends an abortion to save the life of the mother, it's very often to protect themselves, not to save the life of the mother, but to protect themselves from lawsuits. There was a study done recently in Europe looking at mothers who refused to get an abortion, who had cancer, and were taking chemotherapy. And the study concluded that maternal chemotherapy was relatively safe for unborn children. So for 40 years, they've been killing all these babies, thousands of babies, because the baby's going to die anyway. And it turns out that maternal chemotherapy is relatively safe for unborn children. I had a pro-life woman in my office, was completely against all abortion, but she had a tubal ectopic pregnancy. She was told by the OB that the baby cannot survive, 0% survival rate. And so he urged her to get a methotrexate abortion. Now, you don't have to do a methotrexate abortion. As a matter of fact, the standard of care is watchful waiting, because the vast majority of these babies will die and the pregnancies will subside on their own, and the mother doesn't need surgery. She doesn't need an abortion. But he was protecting himself, and he ordered a methotrexate abortion. And 3 weeks later, this woman was bleeding profusely. So he did an ultrasound, and to his horror, he discovered there was a pregnancy in the uterus. So either she had twin pregnancies, one in the fallopian tube in the uterus, or, as has been well documented, the tubal ectopic pregnancy dislodged and reattached in the uterus. And it turns out methotrexate abortions are not good health care after all, because it killed the baby, both babies possibly, or at least the one that would have been a healthy pregnancy in the uterus. And so this woman was horrified to discover that she was unable to conceive later on, this pro-life woman. The vast majority of tubal ectopic pregnancies will resolve on their own. The babies will die, and the pregnancy will resolve, and the mom doesn't need urgent therapy. She doesn't need methotrexate. She doesn't need an abortion. She doesn't need to have that removed. So I think it's unethical for the physician to recommend methotrexate. They can't be 100% sure that there's not a twin in the uterus, and they can't be 100% sure that that baby wouldn't die of natural causes. Just because somebody's going to die of natural causes, it doesn't justify killing them. It's always wrong to intentionally kill an innocent person.
Back in September of last year, I called my mom up and I asked her, and I said, "Okay, Mom, what actually happened to me?" And that's when she really started telling me that I was an ectopic pregnancy baby. They had recommended for me abortion. They wanted to abort me, but her words were, "If my baby have to die, then I will too." And when you think about that, to me, it brings to mind the scripture where Jesus said, "No greater love has a man than this, than a man that would lay down the life for his friend." But in this case, it was a mother willing to sacrifice her life for a child. Quite frankly, my mom, and I'm sure there's many other women, made a choice that is not popular. And for that, I will be forever grateful to her. Why is it that because I was not conceived under circumstances that you find desirable, why is it that my life is expendable to you? And if you can answer that question for me, which you can't, I'll tell you that now, because there's no life, and especially the unborn, that's expendable.
Abortion has nothing to do with health care. You can have the life of a mother saved by inducing labor, prematurely delivering a baby. You can provide health care to the mother and the child. I know a pro-life perinatologist who all he does day in, day out is deliver premature babies. And sometimes they live and sometimes they die, but he treats both. You try to save both. That's not what abortion is. Abortion is not health care. It's just the mentality of death.
My daughter's birth mother was raped at 13. She is basically all of the hard cases that you've ever heard put forward by those who are abortion supporters. She was very young, 13 years old. She was a victim of rape. They told her something was wrong with her baby. Her baby was biracial, and nobody would want a biracial rapist baby. She was actually taken in for the abortion, and they had started the procedure. They found that she was 20 weeks pregnant, so this would be a second trimester abortion, and she was on the table in the stirrups, and they had started the procedure on her after they had first told her that at 20 weeks the baby's not even formed yet. So they had to stop the abortion procedure because she was in so much pain because they were doing the abortion under local anesthesia instead of general anesthesia, and they were manually dilating her. So they stopped the procedure and rescheduled it so that they could allow the family to get more funding to cover general anesthesia. So Jalen is an abortion survivor. They had actually started the procedure on her mother, and she, as a result of that, has some challenges. She has some special needs that she's dealing with, and she will have these challenges for the rest of her life. Her birth mom was told that she did need to go forward with the abortion because if she didn't consent to the abortion, she would die. They told her she was far too young to carry a pregnancy to term and deliver a baby.
She stood up for her child and gave birth to her child, and made the choice to give her away for adoption versus the alternative of not giving that child, our daughter Jalen, life. So we really think her, a hero in the situation. It was a remarkable thing for someone as young as her to stand up to her adult authority figure and stand up for her child's life and give her life when others didn't think that life would be valuable. So
her biological grandmother, who was the one that had pressed for the abortion, is now pro-life and is completely against abortion. And we keep in contact with that family, and they love being able to watch Jalen grow up and experience her life through pictures and videos and things like that. Her birth mother was able to go on, finish high school, has gone on to higher education, so that's been a blessing that she doesn't have to carry around the the pain and regret of an abortion decision, and that she can enjoy watching her daughter grow up. Our other children, I mean, they are learning lessons that we could have told them, we could have talked to them about, we could have read them stories, but they are learning that life, all life, is really valuable, that it doesn't make any difference if the child is rape conceived or special needs or of a different race or whatever their abilities, anything. None of that makes any difference. They are worthy of respect and dignity. Their life is valuable because they are made in the image of God, and I could have told them that all day. They are living that now. They have learned empathy in a way that they never would have had they not had this opportunity, and they're learning to just have a tenderness towards their sister and her friends that are also special needs. Jalen is a worshiper. The girl loves to go to church. She loves to sing as loud as possible. You can hear her over the entire crowd belting it out, and she'll go up front, she'll throw her hands up in the air and sing, and she likes to get down and pray. She'll get on her knees and pray, and she'll be in tears. I've never seen a child do that before, and it's so unique. It's amazing to be able to witness something like that.
If you would like more information on any of these issues, there are several resources for you. And so I hope that you'll avail yourselves of those wonderful resources.
If you're a woman who's had an abortion, for whatever reason your choice was, whether you were raped, you were being forced, because you felt like you had no other option, there is healing and forgiveness in Christ. Every bit of guilt, shame, fear, and worthlessness you feel can completely be healed in His name. My greatest suggestion is find a local CPC, a local pregnancy center, or maybe talk to your pastor about doing a post-abortive Bible study. Because digging in to your past, having to face it for what it is and not hiding, is where the Lord is really going to help you uncover everything that you feel, where He's really going to dig deep into you and show you that you can be healed, that He forgives you. He doesn't look upon you with any disgust. He's not casting any stones. He died for you. He died for this sin. And He longs to have that relationship with you where He can heal you.